Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thanks so much for dropping by this video. This is going to be in response to a letter someone sent me. They and we've been talking about the process of recovering from fake non-duality, aka Neo-Advaita, and I'm going to read parts of their letter. They wrote, still disturbed to a much lesser extent since I started to question it meaning Neo-Advaita, as opposed to accepting it as truth, seen by these, quote, awakened guys, by the Neo-Advaita ideas. So this person had shared that part of the problem for them had been that they just, and all of us do this, I did it, this is the trap. And this is so important. This is so important. This person had assumed that all the Neo-Advaita teachers were enlightened and they were teaching the truth. Just took it as truth and then started to follow them. And this person's life started to go downhill. They started to feel unwell. And through grace, they recognized that something was rotten in the state of Denmark, that something was not right with the Neo-Advaita teaching. So in Sanatam Dharma, the philosophy underlying Hinduism, you don't just accept a guru blindly. You first have to investigate. And I'm going to share a video below of a teacher talking about this a little bit. And this, so the video I'm going to share is this person's a lineaged guru. He's in a lineage. He knows the scriptures. Completely different from what we're seeing. What we're seeing on the internet today, which is basically a bunch of self-appointed teachers who don't know the scriptures, don't know the Hindu scriptures, and are actually teaching in contradiction to the scriptures. One moment while I find this video. Well, Ramana said speech is silver. No. Ramana said silent. One of my other favorite spiritual teachers said, speech is silver, silence is golden, which I think is very much in alignment with what Ramana taught. So please enjoy a little silence. Oh, there it is. Now the thing is this teacher I'm about to share, it's kind of boring. It can be a little boring compared to what we're used to. Compared to Neo-Advaita. Neo-Advaita is really sexy and flashy and exciting. That's part of how it hooks us in. It's like, oh, you can be enlightened now, or you're already enlightened, or you don't have to do work, or all you need to do is just inquire. And it's like, oh my God, all I have to do is this one thing and I'll have perfect eternal happiness. Well, might be true for a few rare souls, but oh, and I forgot the most important thing. Please don't believe anything I say. Find out for yourself if it's truth. Please don't follow me. Please don't follow any teacher until, as this video describes here, you've done your due diligence. And part of due diligence is to make sure the teacher is teaching in alignment with the scriptures. Now that can sound to those of us in the Western, and this is the other thing, Neo-Advaita speaks to those of us who are sick of Christianity. People are like, the Bible is perfect. You must follow the Bible. Well, I was sick of that. And so, here's this Neo-Advaita teacher just, some Neo-Advaita teachers would be, forget scripture. You don't need scripture, da-da-da-da-da. But yet what they're teaching is in complete contradiction to it. And so one of the best defenses against Neo-Advaita is actually studying like the Bhagavad Gita, and studying the Upanishads. So I've posted a link to that video. The reason why this is so important is because any spiritual teaching is going to change your sense of reality. It's going to change your understanding of yourself, your understanding of the world, your understanding of the meaning of life. Studying a spiritual teaching is not like studying biology. It's not like studying history. Yes, studying history and biology will impact you, but a spiritual teaching is it's a complete vision of reality. It's a complete definition of who you are, what life is, what God is, and what the purpose of life is. So if you blindly follow a spiritual teacher, it's like blindly taking a drug that's going to radically impact you. I was naive. I was like, oh, if it's spiritual, it's good. If only. And my definition of spiritual was loosey-goosey. It was like, oh, well, anything not religious is spiritual. Like my way of approaching things was like, if it's not religious, it's spiritual. And if it's spiritual, it's good. So yes, this person who wrote to me and I had been in dialogue with, and myself, we made a really fundamental mistake. It's like some dude was like, can you imagine someone giving a lecture on medicine and without finding out if they're actually a doctor, we walk up to them and say, hey, would you please operate on me? That's what following a spiritual teacher without discernment, without discernment does. And anyone who's even a little bit awakened radiates spiritual energy. So that can't be your guide. There's lots of false teachers out there who pump out, in Hinduism they call it Shaktipat. They just pour it out. You'll get high around them. That doesn't mean they're enlightened. It doesn't mean they can guide you. If you read Neo-Advaita stuff and think about it, you'll get high. It has an impact on the mind. It just doesn't have a permanent impact, ultimately, or a positive impact. So, it has a dissociative impact. But so, this person sent me a quote. This is from a Neo-Advaita teacher. Morality is a human game. It doesn't exist outside of the human, or I haven't checked them out, but this person is basically saying they're Neo-Advaita. Morality is a human game. It doesn't exist outside of the human condition. It is part of that condition. And enlightenment doesn't need to demonstrate anything to humans. Enlightenment is what it is, regardless of human opinions or interpretations. It is not the purpose of enlightenment to advance human morality. Enlightenment transcends, outgrows, and renders morality obsolete. Human progress is irrelevant in enlightenment. So part of why this person shared this is because a common Neo-Advaita ploy is is if you question what the person's saying, then the Neo-Advaita teacher will say, it's beyond the mind. Or, who wants to know? Or, you can't understand it with the mind. Now, there is some truth to that, and Ramana Maharshi himself said it, the enlightened state is not comprehensible with the mind. However, Ramana Maharshi didn't throw out morality and doesn't, as does no true guru is going to throw out morality. That's ridiculous. Ramana Maharshi himself said that lack of enlightenment is the root cause of all immorality. But what Neo-Advaita teachers do, and I've seen it over and over again, is they'll take something that's true. For example, like the enlightened state is beyond comprehension, and then they'll twist it and they'll take it 10 steps further. It's beyond comprehension, so it renders morality obsolete. Neo-Advaita teachers are very creative. Very creative. And that's okay. Creativity is a good thing. It's not a good thing to create your own spiritual teaching. I tried. Trust me. I've explored a lot of different. I tried to kind of come up with my own theology. Didn't work out so well. But hey, if someone wants to create their own teaching, that's okay. Just please don't call it Advaita Vedanta. And the thing is Advaita Vedanta has a history of intense study and intense intellectual effort. This idea that all of Advaita Vedanta is beyond the mind, or drop the mind. That's a very common Neo-Advaita tactic and teaching. That's just not. The history of Advaita Vedanta is the opposite of that. Very deep study and cultivation of the mind. Yes, ultimately to go beyond the mind at a certain point in an educated way, guided by the guru. Neo-Advaita becomes an addiction. Now, this is completely what I'm about to share is I've taken bits and pieces and I've connected the dots based on my own experience. So first of all, as I've said many times, Ramana Maharshi did not advocate self-inquiry for most people. In fact, he discouraged might be the wrong word, but that most people were not ready or ripe for self-inquiry and that it would fail. This is taught in the Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the first things Adi Shankara teaches. So reflecting on that a long time, and Ramana talked about the gunas, as does the Bhagavad Gita, about having a primarily peaceful. There's a comment here. I will answer your question in a moment. Thanks, Ursula. So the reason why, so a sattvic mind, Ramana Maharshi said, self-inquiry is only for those who have a primarily sattvic mind. A primarily sattvic mind is someone with next to no desires, next to no fears, and next to no resentments. If you have a primarily sattvic mind, you're primarily peaceful. You're not grabbing after things. You're not interested in things. You're just kind of flowing through life. You know how you feel after a good yoga class or massage or time in nature? That's a sattvic mind. And if you have that almost all the time, then you've met one of the prerequisites for self-inquiry. If you take up self-inquiry before you have a primary sattvic mind, it becomes an addiction. Self-inquiry does not reduce the other two gunas of rajas and tamas. It suppresses them. And then you become addicted to self-inquiry. It happened to me, and it happened to many, many people. So Ursula asked, love it. And so Ursula, I personally don't mention particular teachers on this channel. It's okay that you did, but so she wrote, "Hello, is blank one of those Neo-Advaita teachers?" And then Ursula wrote, "I didn't even know why I'm asking this, because obviously yes." So here's how you tell whether someone is a Neo-Advaita teacher or not. They teach one of two things, and that's pretty much all they teach. One, there's nothing to do because you're already enlightened. Or two, all you need to do is self-inquiry, and they teach self-inquiry to everyone. If they teach one of those two things to the masses, to mass groups of teachers, they are Neo-Advaita. Some of the other symptoms are they completely remove Advaita Vedanta from its Hindu context. They don't talk about reincarnation and karma. They don't talk about the need for a guru. They don't talk about things like karma yoga and bhakti yoga. In fact, they'll downplay, attack, and criticize everything other than self-inquiry. Basically, a Neo-Advaita teacher, you can pretty much know what they're going to say before they say it. That's the way to tell. So let's say, I don't know, someone out there, please ask me a spiritual question, and I'll be a pretend Neo-Advaita teacher for a moment. Just pretend this is a satsang and you had some question, not about Neo-Advaita, but about life or about Advaita Vedanta. And I'll be a Neo-Advaita teacher for a moment. I'll pretend. If no one asks a question, then I'm going to hop on Quora and find a question. Okay, I just hopped on Quora, and someone wrote, what current trend do you hate seeing? No, even better. What could I do if someone said something that hurt me? Oh, that's a great one. What could I do if someone said something that hurt me? So here I go. Here goes the Neo-Advaita Act. So actually, before I do this, imagine what a Neo-Advaita teacher would say. Most people here have been to Neo-Advaita satsangs. So before I respond, in my pretend Neo-Advaita, what would a Neo-Advaita teacher say to, what could I do if someone said something that hurt me? Okay. And here starts the Neo-Advaita Act. So this is a very important question. And it leads us to the root of what we've been talking about here today. What you need to do when someone does something that hurts you is to recognize that the person who has been hurt doesn't exist. You see, there is no you. You are nothing but consciousness. Everything else, your thoughts, your feelings, you would call it personality, which doesn't even exist. There is no you. There's just the witness of all that is. So there's no need to respond. Ultimately, there's no need to be hurt. Because once you realize what you are, that you cannot be hurt, then all will be well. And scene. Like in Hollywood, they, that thing at the end of a scene, at the end of an act. So it's just a philosophy. It'll give you nothing for how to navigate life. They'll give you nothing for how to respond to things. When people say or do things that are hurtful, it's important to respond. That response might be to do nothing. It's important to consciously respond to everything, not react, especially if there's a pattern of abuse or behavior. What Neo-Advaita will do is it'll dissociate you from yourself, from your personal self. And yes, Advaita Vedanta talks about the personal self. It'll dissociate you from the part of you that's able to make choices. And then your life will become crap very quickly. If you take it seriously, very quickly over time, your life will become crap. Because you won't know how to deal with life. All you know how to do is enter an altered state. And life isn't an altered state. And if you were to say what I just said to a Neo-Advaita teacher, they would say, you're very in your mind. You need to drop your mind. Enlightenment is beyond the mind. So let's see if there's anything else this person wrote. Yes, and part of what it's a very simple game of control. This person wrote me, said, in addition, we also are made to feel inferior, inadequate, and that what we think is just an illusion. It's so vicious. It's so nasty. It's such a intricate mental cult. So Ursula, I hope that answered your question and gave you, more important, gave you some criteria to discern whether the person is. Ultimately, the way to tell if someone's Neo-Advaita is not is to read the Bhagavad Gita, to read Adi Shankara's crescent jewel of discernment and see if it's in alignment or not. Anyone can take one Ramana Maharshi quote and make a religion out of it, and many people have. But most people are not, most Neo-Advaita teachers, I've said this before, but I'll close with this. The best protection is to study the Hindu scriptures, and the Bhagavad Gita is in the center of Advaita Vedanta, or to actually study Adi Shankara. If you do that, you'll see that what's being called, that Neo-Advaita is nothing but a joke, and ultimately a mental cult. It's a closed system that's very tight, and it will attack anything that doesn't fit within that very, very small system. Thank you so much for joining in. Big love, really, to all. And I really appreciate the person who reached out to me and shared this letter. Thanks so much. Big love.